What's good, YouTube? Sensational Sincere's here, and I'm back with another Tom Clancy's The Division Vendor Reset video. We're here for July 3rd, 2020's Vendor Reset. So let's get right into this and see what we got good for this week. Okay, so for our first gear items, you want to head over to Camp Hudson. Here, the gear vendor has a prototype electronics mod with 185 electronics and 4% damage to elites. And then also here we got a prototype stamina mod with 261 stamina and 2% skill haste. Okay, so for our next gear items, you want to head over to the base of operations. Here, the Dark Zone gear vendor has a prototype stamina mod with 254 stamina and 2,976 health. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the weapons vendor here, and we got a G36 enhanced with a gear score of 269. It has 18% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is brutal, competent, and focused. And also here we got a small grip with 19% crit hit damage, 2% accuracy, and 4.50% reload speed. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the gear vendor here, and we got a tactical vest with the talent Reckless on there. It has a gear score of 267. The armor is 1,782. It's roll for electronics 1,182. And the attributes this has is skill haste, enemy armor damage, and increased kill XP. And then also here we got a prototype performance mod with 2% post crit hit damage. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the advanced weaponry vendor, and here we got a double barrel shotgun with a gear score of 266. It has 351% stagger. And the talents this has is brutal, vicious, and competent. Also here we got a heavy magazine spring with 11% magazine size, 4.50% reload speed, and 9.30% rate of fire. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the special equipment vendor, and here we got a pecan. If you like this weapon, it has a gear score of 260. It has 19% damage to targets out of cover. And the talents this has is prepared, vicious, and pecan. Also here we got a liberator with a gear score of 268. It has 18% enemy armor damage. And the talents this has is destructive, adept, and ferocious. Also here we got a police M4 with a gear score of 262. It has 18% enemy armor damage. And the talents this has is fierce, ferocious, and focused. Also here we got a Super 90 with a gear score of 282. It has 321% stagger. And the talents this has is accurate, brutal, and responsive. Also here we got a military M60E4 with a gear score of 278. It has 19% damage to targets out of cover. And the talents this has is vicious, destructive, and accurate. Also here we got a tactical vest with the talent Tenacious on there. It has a gear score of 264. The armor is 865. It's roll for stamina 1,126, and the attributes this has is skill power and increased kill XP. Also here we got a tactical pack with the talent Relentless on there. It has a gear score of 271. The armor is 1,249. It's roll for electronics 1,167, and the attributes this has is stability and disrupt resistance. Also here we got an extended magazine with 113% magazine size, 3% crit hit chance, and 4% crit hit damage. Also here we got a mega rifle suppressor with 17.50% headshot damage, 3% crit hit chance, and 4% crit hit damage. And also here we got a reflex sight with 7% crit hit chance, 2.50% stability, and 6% headshot damage. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the special blueprints vendor, and here we got a firearm knee pad blueprint with a gear score of 256. Also here we got a small laser pointer blueprint with a power level 34. And also here we got a vertical grip foliage green blueprint with a power level 34. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to Camp Clinton. Here the special equipment vendor has a pecan. If you like to run this weapon, this one has a gear score of 272. It has 21% damage to targets out of cover. And the talents this has is Unforgiven, Predatory, and Pecan. Also here we got a Historian with a gear score of 275. It has 152% headshot damage. And the talents this has is Deadly, Sustained, and Historian repeats. Also here we got a Cassidy with a gear score of 267. It has 309.50% stagger. And the talents this has is Trained, Fierce, and Boomstick. Also here we got an Operator Mask with the talent Refreshed on there. It has a gear score of 261. The armor is 860. It's roll for stamina 1,130. And the attributes this has is crit hit chance and disorienting resistance. Also here we got an operator pack with the talent Inventive on there. It has a gear score of 273. The armor is 1,275. It's roll for firearms 1,266. And the attributes this has is skill power and bleed resistance. Also here we got some tactical gloves with the talent Savaged on there. They have a gear score of 271. The armor is 922. It's roll for stamina 1,165. And the attributes this has is shotgun damage, crit hit damage, and enemy armor damage. Also here we got a prototype stamina mod with 263 stamina and 2.50% exotic damage resilience. Also here we got a prototype performance mod with 7.50% mobile cover health. Also here we got a extended magazine with 109% magazine size, 5% reload speed, and 4% crit hit damage. And also here we got a VX1 scope with 18.50% headshot damage, 2.50% stability, and 2.50% accuracy. For our next gear items, we're still at Camp Clinton. Head over to the special blueprints vendor, and here we got a classic M44 carbine blueprint with a gear score of 256. Also here we got a holster blueprint with a gear score of 256. Also here we got a stamina mask blueprint with a gear score of 256. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the last call. Here the weapons vendor has a military M870 with a gear score of 268. It has 318.50% stagger, and the talents it has is competent, predatory, and adept. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the southpaw. Here the gear vendor has some operator gloves with the talent savage on there. They're not the best roll, but I figured I'd mention it. It has a gear score of 276. The armor is 935. Its roll for electronics 1,264. And the attributes it has is assault rifle damage, pistol damage, and health on kill. And then also here we got a prototype performance mod with 3.50% sticky bomb damage. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the firewall. Here the gear vendor has a prototype performance mod with 5.50% first aid self-heal. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the crypt. Here the weapons vendor has a tactical Super 90 SBS with a gear score of 280. It has 309.50% stagger, and the talents it has is brutal, fierce, and ferocious. For our next gear items, you would head over to West 42nd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has an operator vest with the talent Rapid on there. It has a gear score of 275. The armor is 1,950. Its roll for electronics 1,221. And the attributes this has is skill haste, health on kill, and ammo capacity. And also here we got a prototype firearms mod with 257 firearms and 2.50% exotic damage resilience. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to West 46th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a surplus SVD with a gear score of 283. It has 163% headshot damage. And the talents it has is brutal, commanding, and discipline. Also here we got an operator vest with the talent Rapid on there. It has a gear score of 278. The armor is 1,875. Its roll for electronics 1,267. And the attributes this has is enemy armor damage, skill haste, and increased kill XP. Also here we got a prototype performance mod with 5% first aid ally heal. And also here we got a tyrant suppressor with 7% crit hit chance, 4% crit hit damage, and 2.50% stability. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to West 53rd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a black market SASG 12S with a gear score of 274. It has 324.50% stagger, and the talents it has is meticulous, responsive, and vicious. And also here we got a prototype firearms mod with 254 firearms and 3% skill haste. And also here we got a heavy magazine spring with 2.50% crit hit chance, 11.50% magazine size, and 9.90% rate of fire. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 64th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone gear mod vendor has a prototype performance mod with 2% pulse crit hit chance. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 61st Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone weapon mod vendor has a heavy magazine spring with 4.50% reload speed, 4% crit hit damage, and 9.50% rate of fire. And also here we got a small grip with 17% crit hit damage, 5% reload speed, and 4.50% optimal range. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 58th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone gear vendor has an operator mask with the talent refreshed on there. It has a gear score of 273. The armor is 919. Its roll for firearms 1,218. And the attributes this has is enemy armor damage and blind death resistance. Also here we got a Spec Ops pack with the talent Relentless on there. It has a gear score of 272. The armor is 1,255. Its roll for electronics 1,221. And the attributes this has is health and disrupt resistance. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to the Park Ave checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone weapons vendor has a SOCOM Scar L with a gear score of 278. It has 20% enemy armor damage, and the talents this has is vicious, prepared, and capable. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 53rd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a military L86 LSW with a gear score of 266. It has 22% damage to targets out of cover. And the talents this has is competent, unforgiving, and prepared. And also here we got a prototype performance mod with 3.50% turret damage. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 46th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a tactical SASG 12K with a gear score of 264. It has 313.50% stagger. And the talents this has is unforgiving, adept, and determined. And also here we got a Spec Ops armor with the talent Rapid on there. It has a gear score of 283. The armor is 1,935. Its roll for firearms 1,260, And the attributes this has is all resistance, enemy armor damage, and increased kill XP. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 42nd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a Super 90 with a gear score of 267. It has 342.50% stagger. And the talents this has is Adept, Fierce, and Capable. Also here we got a Spec Ops pack with the talent Specialized on there. It has a gear score of 274. The armor is 1,242. It's roll for stamina 1,254. And the attributes this has is stability and burn resistance. For our next gear items, we're going to head over East 40th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a tactical MK16 with a gear score of 275. It has 19% enemy armor damage. And the talents this has is Brutal, Unforgiving, and Fierce. And also here we got a Tyrant Suppressor with 7.50% crit hit chance, 2.50% stability, and 2% accuracy. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to the 5th Ave checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a Marine Super 90 with a gear score of 280. It has 343% stagger. And the talents this has is Adept, Predatory, and Fierce. And also here we got a prototype performance mod with 3.50% ballistic shield damage. And also here we got extended magazine with 120% magazine size, 3% crit hit chance, and 4.70% rate of fire. For our next gear items, you're going to hit over DZ2 safe room. Here the Dark Zone gear vendor has a Spec Ops mask with the talent refreshed on there. It has a gear score of 276. The armor is 983. It's roll for stamina 1,129. And the attributes this has is enemy armor damage and blind death resistance. Also here we got a tactical vest with the talent Vigorous on there. It has a gear score of 275. The armor is 1,908. Its roll for firearms 1,243. And the attributes this one has is exotic damage resilience, skill haste, and increased kill XP. Also here we got a tactical pack with the talent Relentless on there. It has a gear score of 266. The armor is 1,184. Its roll for firearms 1,167. And the attributes this has is health and burn resistance. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to DZ3 safe room. Here the Dark Zone weapons vendor has the SOCOM M1A with a gear score of 273. It has 151% headshot damage, and the talents it has is Prepared, Swift, and Vicious. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to DZ8 safe room. Here the Dark Zone gear vendor has a tactical mask with the talent refreshed on there. It has a gear score of 271. The armor is 880. Its roll for stamina 1,175. And the attributes this has is skill power and burn resistance. Also here we got a tactical vest with the talent Reckless on there. It has a gear score of 279. The armor is 1,890. Its roll for firearms 1,258. And the attributes this has is all resistance, skill haste, and increased kill XP. And also here we got a Spec Ops pack with the talent Relentless on there. It has a gear score of 266. The armor is 1,267. Its roll for electronics 1,122. And the attributes this has is stability and burn resistance. Alright everybody, that's it for our Tom Clancy's The Division Vendor Reset video for July 3rd, 2020's Vendor Reset. I hope everybody who tuned into it found them something that they needed. Smash on that like and sub button if you hadn't. I appreciate that love and support. And I will see y'all with the next one, everybody. Take care. Peace.